Now, one of the more interesting aspects about I got a cheat skill in another world is the fact that Yuya as a character can go to and from his fantasy world. But most importantly, what he brings to either world does transfer over. So in the case of his new dog Knight, he got it in the fantasy world, and now, yes, it's in the normal reality as well. But I think the idea of having these abilities and these items from this kind of mystical isekai normal environment, now in a normal modern Japan setting, it's an interesting idea because the concepts of, as we see him at the arcade, he uses this kind of like analyze skill to know exactly how to push, whether it's a figure, whether it's a copy of Elden Ring, he wins all these arcade machines. But at the beginning of this episode, we are talking to Sage, seemingly a pretty cursed fellow, all things considered. He mastered everything, hell, even found a way to get to the realm of the gods, denied the gods, and seemingly died a pretty, not so great death. And he transfers his knowledge and his power over to our boy Yuya, but he does give him a warning about how he needs to find the right people to trust in order to avoid the same fate as him. And while it's completely possible it was a 100% accident, the fact that the arcade machines that he did manipulate with his analyze skill just so happened to also catch on fire shortly after, I mean, to me it says potentially he's got to be careful with his magic, because even if he's not the cause of things bursting to flames, potentially people could eventually see him as a monster, which would be an interesting turn of events. Now, full live reaction to episode 6 of Easleave is available on my Patreon, so if you do want to see my full uncut thoughts, you can head over there and consider supporting. So like I say, it could be a complete coincidence, but to me, prior to the fire starting, I literally was saying it out loud. I was like, oh, I wonder if because he's using his magic on these machines, if something's going to happen and ultimately like a fire's going to break out. And then I was like, well, maybe not. Maybe that's not what's going to happen. And then the fire does break out. Now, it could just be a completely contrived reason, accidentally, because he was at the right place, the right time. We wrote it this way just so he had the ability to save these 3 girls from a fire and obviously their death. But to me, I'd like to think that potentially him manipulating using this almost like this scanning onto these machines potentially could have fried the wires to the point of exposing them, which ultimately caused the flames to erupt. But even if we assume he wasn't responsible for the machines breaking and his magic didn't do anything negative to it, I think the fact that Sage did bring up the fact that he needs to find the right connections, otherwise he'll end up in a pretty tragic fate similar to himself. It says to me that there's an interesting element of threat and danger, despite it appearing very cliche and basic at face value. We literally look at the school stuff. It does follow typical trends and tropes of, oh, here's a bunch of like pretty boys, pretty girls. They're all basically infatuated with our boy Yuya, and they go buy some equipment for camping. And then by the end, we get a more exciting moment where he basically makes a water suit so he can run through the flames and saves the day. Yes, this is pretty much what you typically see in these shows. The loser MC now is a more talented, hotter version of himself, and now everyone's worshiping the ground he walks on. But as I keep saying, the thing that makes it exciting is you like Yuya as a person, and 2, you actually feel like, his self-loathing and his resentment and also feeling uncomfortable with these new things. He didn't switch overnight with a new, better mentality. No, he still feels like this is awkward as hell for him because he just doesn't know what to do. So it's nice seeing those moments because while yes, it kind of panders to the crowd who just simply watch these types of shows for those, but there is actually a character arc being told with Yuya. It's not to say that there isn't things that coincidentally happen and just make things easier for him. Whether it's being at the park at the right time because a robber is stealing this woman's purse, or even if he wasn't the cause of the fire, I mean, ultimately he's there to save the day. But I like the fact that they keep what is normally the more mundane things more exciting by having those moments, because while I completely understand that this is an awkward situation for Yuya and he doesn't know how to interact, I mean, there's only so much I can watch of these high school kids basically worshiping the ground he walks on and him being like, I don't know how to handle it. So how do you keep that type of stuff exciting for someone like me? Well, you let him beat up a robber, or you let him save some people from a fire, and then when we get into the fantasy world, that's where the general fantasy adventure fun stuff occurs. Like him learning how to use magic. I mean, a simple water ball spell usually isn't the craziest thing ever, but he basically had hydro cannon and blasted through solid oak trees. And to me, that stuff makes it more exciting. And that's what I like about it, is it kind of balances that fine line of cliches and tropes don't have to be bad if you utilize them in the right way. And is this show breaking new grounds and doing things we've never seen before? Of course not. But is it a pretty solid watch? Absolutely. A lot better than places like r/anime are giving credit to, if you ask me. And to me, that's what I like about this episode, is it has enough there that makes me think of the what if. I could be thinking of things that it doesn't want me to. Maybe the wire was just fried and he was at the right place at the right time, but it doesn't change the fact that there's enough at the beginning of the episode with Sage, and the fact that we see him using this skill, and you probably will think to yourself, even if you're not thinking he's going to cause a fire, you're probably thinking, I wonder, is there any negative consequences to a magical ability being used in a normal setting? And the fact that you have the ability to think about the what if, to me, that's what keeps a show like this exciting. Would I watch 10 seasons of I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World? Probably not, but would I watch 2 or 3? I think so currently. I'm halfway through its first season, and honestly, what I've seen so far, I like Yuya, I like the isekai world, the fantasy world, and when they focus on the more boring aspect, which would be his modern school setting, I find they always find a way to keep me, at the very least, entertained by either saying, damn, I'm glad he's actually having something nice, like the fact that he looked at after he saves everyone, the fact that he's like, oh, is this what family's supposed to be? Because literally he was beaten and abused by his actual family. Like, I feel bad when I see those moments, so for me, I'm just happy when he's like, yeah, he's having this goofy, cliche, anime characters hanging out after school scene, but I'm happy for the boy, and the fact that they don't let the more simple stuff linger too long before popping off with, oh, he's gonna beat up a preppy dude who's trying to show up late for a model shoot, or he's gonna beat up a thug trying to steal an old woman's purse, or in this case, saving people from fire. I like it, and I think, while yes, there's certain moments, like when he's initially running up the stairs, the animation looks a little goofy, I think they do have fun where, like, you know, the whole concept of, like, basically putting himself in water, I thought he was just gonna blast and, you know, put out all the flames. But then again, when you consider the fact that he did blast through a whole tree, you don't want to accidentally use your giant hydro cannon of death and accidentally hurt the girl, so coating yourself in water makes a lot more sense, or him going like Super Saiyan Ultra Instinct and just going straight down to the first floor. Yeah, like maybe sometimes he gets away with explaining things without explaining things, like how the hell did he get from the 10th to the first floor? But yeah, like sometimes you do just have to accept it is anime at the end of the day, and not everything will make completely logical sense. But I think where it needs to make sense, to me it does. Yuya's, you know, original version of himself to where he is now, the self-loathing, the awkwardness, like everything about that, and the interesting fantasy world that can be transferred to the normal world. Yeah, I like the show so far. This is one of those shows that within every couple of episodes, there's something that I'm like, oh, I haven't quite seen that done before, whether it's casually having an item drop that can be a portable bath, whether a sauna or a jacuzzi by the looks of it, or in this case, you know, learning magic through the sage's gift and being able to take that to the modern world. For some reason, I didn't really think he could do that. I was like, yeah, I see that he took his pet to his normal world, but to me, like, learning magic is like, oh yeah, magic will be something that's strictly here. And no, he can actually use it in his real world, but I'm curious to see if there will be a price to pay, and if not, I mean, eventually people will notice something's weird, and it'll be interesting to see what people push back against him being a freak, or those who will just continue to worship the ground he walks on. But either way, I'm liking what I'm watching. It may not be a masterpiece of a show, but it's a damn fine watch if you ask me. But thoughts, feelings yourself down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell of course so you can get notified when I upload. And like I mentioned, we do have a full live reaction available on my Patreon, and while you're there you can also get a video shout out like a few are about to get here. So today we have Selin Wu, Benjamin Henderson, and Anne Leefdoor. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.